Oh. All right, so good evening. I will call to order the Environmental Commission meeting. It is Tuesday, March 8th, and we will begin with roll call.
Commissioner Randazzo, Commissioner Obermeyer, here. Commissioner Tu, Commissioner Del Prieto Cervantes, here. Commissioner Murphy, here. Vice Chair Millay, and Chair Rock.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any items that anybody would like to add to the agenda following the 72-hour posting deadline?
No items have been brought to the attention of staff.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public wishing to address the commission? Any item that is not covered on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll continue with approval of minutes. Is there a motion regarding the minutes?
I move to approve the February minutes.
I'll second. We don't need to do a call vote. Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All opposed? Approval passes. We'll move on to business items. And at this point, before we begin the annual work plan, I'd just like to invite the new planners up to introduce themselves.
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Aaron Gardner. I'm a planner. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. I had the pleasure of sending some emails about the search plan with Michelle, and I look forward to working with you.
My name is Jose Torres. I'm the associate planner. I've only been here just about a week, so a little more experience behind these there, and looking forward to working with all of you.
Welcome. We're so happy to have you. We definitely have plenty of work that we can be sending your way. Any questions for the new planners from anybody on the commission?
No questions, but I just wanted to say it's nice to meet you. Likewise, thank you so much for coming to introduce yourself. It's a pleasure. Yes, same here. Welcome.
It might be too early for me to ask this, but do you have an idea of sort of specific areas of work that you'll each be focusing on, just so that as we're sort of thinking about what we're doing, we might be able to better understand what we're working on?
Eric is passionate about transportation planning. And he's already hooked up with Michelle on that, and he's just bringing an energy to it that my brain is not capable of processing at this time. So I'm thankful for that. And Jose has a lot of experience in GIS, but he does not want to become our on-staff GIS planner. But he is going to be looking at making a few things easier for us in terms of providing us as planners access to things that we really should have to make our work easier. So that's kind of his first week and a half in. And then they can think about that a bit more and keep discussing it as it.
That sounds great. I understand the hesitation on becoming the GIS person. It's too bad Timothy isn't here. He's our student rep, and he has done a lot with GIS through his studies. So I'm sure he'd be happy to talk with you about that. Okay, we'll move on to the next business item, which is the work plan. I think everybody had an opportunity. Thank you, Beth, for sending this out as a reminder in advance of the meeting. And we'll go through the presentation and then have discussion.
Yeah, it's not much of a presentation, it's more of a reminder. So it is just the contents of the plan, but I think it's an important reminder, because the environmental commission has been pretty active in terms of communicating with council and pushing for things to be looked into, including grants. So just a quick reminder on this first slide of the environmental commission's mission statement. And then the general duties. The general duties is where it touches on the obligations to the city council in terms of providing input to them on policies. So just take a minute to kind of scan this over and familiarize yourself with the mission and duties of the Monarch.
Clarify, is this a piece that was approved in the original ordinance? Yeah, so we can't, we're not really changing with the work plan review, anything with the mission statement or general duties.
Correct. Yeah, these first few slides are kind of the things that will remain static.
Okay.
We update this every year. General duties continued, again, advising the capacity to council and other commissions. And then as we have taken on the work of developing policies, specifically priority impact classification prevention policy, and then working with other agencies to do the outreach on that. There's some responsibilities. I think this is the only slide regarding that. This is another one of those static items that will not change. The resolution is mentioned there. I can provide that if you do want to see the document to guide this work. This commission. A few months before I started with Seaside, that's this time. So would be a good reminder. So I'll share that.
That's the resolution that also included the homeless commissions or others as well, right? They were sort of all established around the same time. Okay.
Yeah. So this is going into last year's annual work plan, and really what I think we did last time around was put it onto the Google Doc and have us collaborating on it so I think that's what will be necessary this time around as well. And the way we had it set up, and you'll see in subsequent slides, is that we have the major items of what we wanted to be included in the work plan. And then from those items from the year prior, we moved those into kind of goals and what we did to reach those and actions that were happening. So when we think about what we want to move forward and what we potentially modify, you know, some of this work is continuing, some of it we throw into the goals and things that we achieved associated with those goals, like Fit for, although I can see also kind of continuing that public outreach. So definitely read through this and see and think about, especially if you were involved in one of the subcommittees that one of these goals was related to, how that can be transformed into the goal statement that we should set out to do. The other two items are relatively short, but still heavy lifts. Habitat, I think that's going to remain pretty much the same. I do think that the goals section that we did acknowledge a lot of the work that has been done, and then although we did clarify some of the work how we are getting trees in the city as charged by the Parks and Rec. We can still acknowledge the 25+ trees that were planted in conversation with Parks Commissioner Diane Nielsen across the holiday parks that we've established. And then number 4, I think this is where it's open for more discussion. That's something that, you know, had some energy behind it at the beginning of COVID. Subcommittee of 3 members of the EC took on that work, and Chelsea needed to take lead. That work was not sustained, and I wonder the energy and effort that needs to either be directed at that or changed into a new goal, given that we have a couple other commissions that are more looking at economics of the city. So does anybody have any thoughts to share on that first section of what we set out to do last time? Any thoughts of any major changes this time around as we go through and edit our document?
May I make a suggestion just to help facilitate this discussion, and if we can sort of break it into 2 sections around talking through some of the progress and achievements we've made on existing goals, and then I'll make notes of those and incorporate that into this, and then maybe the second part we can talk about, you know, any modifications we want to make for the year ahead, and then based on that I can make updates, send them to Beth, and then distribute them, because my understanding is we need to have our work plan approved at the April meeting, because it has to be done 3 months before the next fiscal year.
That's the goal.
Okay.
I think with some of these issues that we've been having with holding meetings, there might be a bit more leniency in that like hard deadline, but more that opportunity.
Okay.
We'll see what the other commissions are able to do.
Okay.
I need to pull for some to establish form with this changing us with the.
Yeah. Okay. We can aim for April. We'll roll with it. So with that, maybe we can just go sort of down the row and ask for comments or input on any areas, any of these 4 areas where you have specific progress or accomplishments that you want to make sure is noted. And don't feel like you have to get everything today. If you think of something later, you can always email Beth and she'll pass it along. So Michelle, I want to start with you. I'll start with you, Mariana.
Do you mind going to the first slide, just so we can have it, or where number 1 is? I mean, number 1, we made some pretty great strides there.
Mhm.
And even, you know, we took into account and valued during COVID-19 and the pandemic, when it was related to getting in, we're able to make sure that we were supporting businesses by halting what we were trying to do there.
Mhm.
And you know, now we're looking at implementation. And those are really things. And we're even working with not just the environmental commission, but other stakeholders to make sure that we are implementing PIP.
Yeah.
With that in mind of how do we support businesses? So make sure stakeholders are kind of being brought into the whole process. You know, we go down all of them.
Just whatever you feel informed or relevant for, you know, for you to comment on.
I don't have anything else right now, but I'm probably gonna have other things in a minute.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, go ahead, Kristen.
All right, we'll go down the list here. Yeah, I wanted to echo some slight modifications, the compliments that Mariana had for number 1. The idea that we held and continue to say this is important to us, it's going to happen. Don't forget about it. We're not letting up on it for the PIP 4. I think that working with consultants was an excellent use of that kind of in-between space. I'm especially happy that we saw an opportunity to look at some Spanish language options for like slogans and to evaluate that before we launched into outreach. I'm happy that the city brought in our awesome communications person, who got to get involved with that. So I think there was a lot of groundwork for the outreach phase that happened, and that I'm happy that it was something that we still said we were going to do, even with everyone needing to go where, and all the takeout that happened. I'm also happy that no one randomly changed any laws on us that made that problematic. I am also kind of happy that it bought us time to have the composting implemented in the green waste bins and to understand what that would mean. For example, our to-go where doesn't go in the compost, the household composting that Monterey Regional Waste Management District is able to accept. So I think that's really going to help our outreach strategy. And if we tried to make an outreach strategy and if it implemented, we probably would be doing a lot of rewriting right now. So honestly, I think things progressed at a good pace, considering all the different stakeholders that are out there. This is obviously still going to be a priority for us in our next year work plan as we actually make things happen and people start to be able to accept other things to do. On number 2, I was reflecting back, I don't remember being asked for as much comment on environmental reports over the last year. I'm not sure if it was because the city didn't have as many or if, you know, happening remotely, everyone forgot about us. I do appreciate that we got to look at the sustainable communities planning and write a letter about that. Thank you so much, Lacey, at that for doing some research on that. I felt like we had a good chance to input to the city when that came up, and I think that fell under number 2. Honestly, huge kudos to Laura Murphy for number 3 with the habitat work there. I think the pollinator garden and the regular work days at the parks has been a huge thing for last year. Honestly, I feel like last year was just the year of those park cleanups and that park work days. With everyone needing to get outside, wanting to see each other in a safe outside environment, it was the perfect timing for it. I really hope that we've established some habit building with our community that will continue. That people have seen that happening, start using the parks more, valuing the parks more, and thinking about work days. More recently, towards the end of the year, I want to compliment folks on bringing in the Blue Zones group, because I've seen some things from them talking about our park work days. And so it seems like that might actually be a connection that will continue. And since we've had such luck with our community organizations like FOSPA and Sustainable Seaside, the idea of bringing in that Blue Zones group is another community group who we can work with. Really excites me because, you know, we've seen such good things from them. So many thumbs up for those park work days. I honestly hope we can just keep it as a habit every day outside like we have been the last couple of years. And I wonder if that's something that we can think about. Like, I don't think number 4 as it stands, the green economic recovery is something that is as timely. So I almost wonder if, you know, due to circumstances, we might have missed the bus a bit on this one. And I don't see any value in continuing that in our work plan. But I wonder if some of the work that was put in, specifically what like Chelsea talked about in terms of finding other places for farmers market type activities, might be something we can continue. For example, Seaside had lost their compost collection when we lost our farmers market. And so I wonder if as we start working with groups, if we have these times people are coming together, we can start to identify some other day or thing for some of those things that we lost when we lost the farmers market, like compost collection or farmers market activities. It also makes me think of like other community collaborations, like the idea of having something happen with our booths in the park or something happening with the movies in the park, city events, which may be that we can connect. Like, I don't think we've ever thought of having the city events like the Blues in the Park also incorporate a different city goal at the same time. And I think that was brilliant. So even if we're not trying to do green economic recovery, I think that's a thought that could be carried forward. And I wanted to suggest that maybe as we see what that develops into, maybe we reach out and talk to the Everyone's Harvest organization again, who tried with us to have the farmers market there. We're elsewhere in the peninsula area where folks are looking for advice on all these new laws about compostable to-go where and compost in your green waste bin and all of these new things that are coming up that are environmentally friendly. As an attendee of farmers markets, I found that the people at the Everyone's Harvest booth keep getting asked that. So they seem to be doing the outreach for us about our city initiatives, even though they have absolutely no idea what's going on. And so I'm wondering if, because they're already running these booths where Seaside residents are asking them questions about Seaside policies, if maybe there's some way that we can connect with them again, even if it's just to have a relationship when they're in Pacific Grove, being asked by Seaside residents looking for a farmer's market. So maybe that fourth one can be turned into something. I don't think as it stands, that's where we need to be at anymore. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks. Laura?
So I don't have much to comment about on PIP except good job, you guys. I didn't participate very much in that work, but I've seen it come along. On planning and infrastructure, I don't think that we've done a lot of work here. As Kristen was saying, I don't remember being asked to comment on a lot of reports, a lot of environmental impact reports or any other areas, although I think we did do just through communications and kind of groundwork, laying some foundations, figuring out essentially like where do different policies and responsibilities lie, and starting to explore some possibilities for extended networks and opportunities for funding for potential projects that are relevant to some of these topics. So mostly if I can focus on number 3, the habitat, of course, that's been my big project for the year, and I think that we've done a lot. Thank you, Kristen, you covered it pretty well. What's really important here is the community building aspect of it, that we've really developed a really good liaisonship and relationships among community-based nonprofit organizations and neighborhood associations and just a whole lot of neighbors throughout Seaside that now are building their capacity and developing a bigger program and a bigger vision and taking it forward and making it answer much more than, of course, we ever could have hoped for it. It's really, really exhilarating to me. I love being a part of that, and I definitely want to continue it. A lot of ideas have kind of spawned and developed, like, that have come from the community itself, as far as in habitat, and I guess I would say community food resilience. This could tie into the idea of a farmer's market connection, but maybe just more focused on urban farming or community gardening, things of that like nature. There are models of programs from around the region that I think are exciting to look at, that we could potentially start to not pivot, but to turn into a different direction as the community partners involved in the habitat work are really taking on a lot of it. We might be able to start introducing some other new programming and focusing our work on developing within the community capacity and interest and ability to pursue other projects that are already of interest in the community, but the resources just haven't been there toward seaside-based food production for community resilience. So I would like to see that. I do also have a big goal on trees. I would like to specifically work together in an intentional way with the Parks and Rec Commission on reviewing the tree policy in the city, just like be very deliberate and focused, pull together all of the resources that we can around trees, figure out how things are done, how they've been done, and what needs to be modified to move us in an appropriate direction as far as public place tree planting and management.
Thank you, Laura. Michelle?
This is only my fourth
Yeah.
so I don't have a lot to contribute here. I've done a couple of park work days, so I want to echo what you heard already, that this has been really great for the community, getting people out and expanding our networks. Blue Zone's partnership, I think, is really great, and having them help advertise it is really a good benefit for the city. So I think we should continue that. As far as number 2, planning and infrastructure, I do have a recommendation I think we'll get to later in this for how we can incorporate that more into our work.
I can pull that slide up now if you want.
Are you ready to talk about?
Yeah, I'll finish your comments on anything else related to progress or achievements.
And then I guess as far as like looking back,
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate that. I don't have anything to add that hasn't already been said. Actually, I do. I take that back. For the planning and infrastructure, I think item C, we have done, we started to do a bit of work on the climate action planning, and then it was sort of a little bit unclear as to the city direction and our role within the city's role. And so I want to acknowledge that there has been some work and conversations around that, but that might be an area that we get to when we're thinking about what to do in the future and how to approach that. So other than that, I couldn't agree more with the comments that were said, especially just the kudos all around the great work that people have been doing. It's really impressive, I gotta say, you know, when, especially on top of everything that's been going on in our world and community, to still see progress being made in these areas is really uplifting. And I think it's a little bit of like a warm spot in our hearts to see the progress that's still being made. And that's in large part because of each of you and because of the work that you have been building with partners and other community members. So really grateful and recognizing that. Well, Beth, is there anything you want to add regarding accomplishments? And there were a couple comments about the EIRs. I'm just, because that was something that I thought about too. Is that something we haven't had any, or?
I would say more falls into that category. There were some projects that probably happened a little bit before COVID, or so too, when I was just that were past that. But we are picking up work again on the general plan update. Following hopefully within a few months of that would be form-based codes. I can see form-based code. First opportunity to have one. As for other projects that are coming through the city that aren't in a major plans to drive us forward, not much involvement in terms of the work that's done by a consultant, even for something that we might consider to be a significant project, like the Senate, which is around 116 units. That work is mostly kept circulate and get public comment on. So yeah, it's an important distinction to make. It just hasn't.
Okay. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Of course, yeah.
I know CSUMB has their campus master plan, and that EIR is in circulation right now. I think for maybe another 2 weeks. It just started reviewing it. Is that something the city is looking at as it relates to campus town?
Yeah, we're making comments on it. Not specific to campus town, but just in general. Still have Rick Medina on staff, which we're very fortunate to have him because he's worked through his entire career. There were a couple of things right off the bat that he was questioning in their plan. So he's provided comments on that. If the environmental commission would like something like that to be shared, that isn't seaside direct, but is adjacent, then that's something that we can start sharing.
How do people feel about that?
I think it really is important because there are connections, especially from the transportation side. So yeah, if there are adjacent projects, I think
Yeah, I'd like to at least see them. I don't know how much time we need to spend on an open meeting, but I like at least being aware of what's going on. So when someone else references it,
And our approach, correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, would be to review and provide comment to council to consider, and then it would be incorporated with general city comments. It wouldn't necessarily be any action that we take.
Yeah, and
then
you want to take that approach, if you filter those through or, adjacent jurisdictions, if you do think it's really gonna have an impact on the seaside, I would say go through it. Otherwise, feel free to make comments from the public, especially if it's more a personal concern.
Mhm. Anything else? Any other questions? Any comments from Beth on progress so far? If not, we'll jump and start thinking about, I think we all sort of hinted at some ideas for, what we want to change and look at going forward, but let's move into that conversation then. And we'll start, Mariana, do you mind if we start with you again? Just follow the same path?
Yes, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, and just wanted to echo a lot of the amazing work that has been done. Yeah, so as far as, how we can improve, I just have a couple of things here. Planning and infrastructure. I really do like the idea of making sure we're putting public comments in. But I remember sometime in the year, we talked about sustainability and climate action plans of some sort. So how can we incorporate that and be more intentional about that? As well as working with the Coastal Commission on thinking about sea level rise side. Monarch is thinking about it. How do we incorporate ourselves into that? And I think we've had conversations about that. When it comes to just in general, the plan, especially the habitat piece for fauna, how do we incorporate, like, where are the people in the plan? We've talked a lot about the environment as a whole, but where's community, where's people? How can we incorporate it a little bit more into our goals and into our plan? It's just a question that I have, and kind of throwing it out there. And then also, how do we make sure that participation reflects population and demographics of the city of Seaside? Is something that has been on my mind, especially when it comes to the planting that goes on in the parks through that work. How do we make sure that we're going more so that it's reflecting our demographics and more of our community there.
And so can I just clarify, are you referring to people who are participating?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, people that are participating. And then to kind of that same end, how do we get more community-based organizations? We are working really greatly with some wonderful partners, but maybe thinking outside of the box and kind of more of that intersection that a lot of community-based organizations can have. So thinking about, how do we incorporate art community-based organizations and, the schools a little bit more into our goals and into our plans, into our outreach. And then same thing, kind of the same as there, where can we collaborate with other commissions, and especially thinking about the homeless commission, and how do we thinking about we've been talking a lot about doing cleanups. How do we incorporate that into our houseless community? Is something that I would love to explore. And then to your point about the green economic recovery, and kind of what has been talked about as far as having a farmers market and the jazz festival, but also other festivals that the city may be incorporating. The thing that stands out to me the most is one of the Sea that got planned really by the city, but I could be wrong. So and how can we collaborate a little bit more to make sure that we are doing and planning those events with sustainability in mind? I think worth exploring and putting into our goals.
Thank you. Kristen?
Thank you. I organized my notes wrong, so you got all my stuff up, Fred. But I did want to share a couple of things that were sparked by the commissioners during their rounds. Mariana, what you just said now about, like, where are the people in this, and making sure that people can be involved makes a lot of sense, because I was thinking about how much easier it was to attend a lot of local politics when I could just do it in a Zoom call while in the middle of my day. And that maybe there are some aspects of that we can maintain in the future. Like I see that apparently this is up on Zoom. So maybe members of the public can call in even if they're at home or have childcare or are in some types of work, you can call them all types of work. But I appreciate thinking about that kind of participation. I don't have an answer for that yet, but I want to support that and put some energy behind that. I also, Laura, what you were saying about some of the food resilience, I wonder if some of that can be combined as a new goal that has sprung from what used to be point number 4, with thinking about what we learned working with community events and thinking about what we learned working with briefly at farmers market and tree planting and planting in parks, so maybe involve food aspects there. So maybe there can be some environmental sustainable aspects for that food resiliency. The last thing also was, Mariana, you were talking about the sustainability of events. And I think there's huge aspects of things the city does all the time, which don't even, like, I don't even think they think about us because it's not Earth Day. I feel like, of course, like the Earth Day event, everyone's thinking about the Environmental Commission. But I was looking at some of the, like, the kid activities or some of the things that the Recreation Department does. And I don't think it occurs to them to make use of the sustainability resources that they now have in the city now that this commission exists. So maybe there is an aspect now where we can, you know, do a bit of outreach and just be like, hey, what are your events? What are the things you're working on? Can we look at any of this for sustainability? Like Seaside Parks and Rec actually got a huge community swallow support for what they did over COVID, doing things like hand delivering Easter eggs and little Valentine activity baskets for the resources that they would have had people come in to play with. But there was so much like wrapped plastic items that went against the packaging that Seaside was just talking about. That it was like the, you know, the left hand and the right hand were talking to each other. So inspired by that comment, I wonder if there are some of the other departments that we can offer to check in with or audit or think about other things they may not think of as their Earth Day events.
Thank you. Laura.
Right, so as I mentioned, specifically want to engage in deliberate conversation with Parks and Rec Commission around trees and tree policy. So that's one area of work. It's already really on here, but I want to emphasize it for the coming year. In general, in all areas, I'm absolutely in favor of continuing to liaise and to build community and build relationships with other entities and within the community at large. And I have also, in the last several months, through my employer, the Resource Conservation District, submitted multiple grants to help support that kind of work, so that I can engage with it more professionally and also bring other RCD staff and resources into the community, in particular to address the demographic question with the habitat project. That's been something that I've been concerned about, and I think that we should, as a commission, focus on it more, and it's something I'm trying to facilitate and grow among the groups that are participating in that activity, but it is very challenging to do, like as a volunteer, as everybody's volunteering, right? And so that's an area that's really really important to me, and of course I want our commission to continue to support that, and I am also trying to build additional capacity through these grants. So we'll see what happens there. Regardless, I think that our role as far as community building should in general be focused on just exactly what Mariana and Kristen were saying, as far as trying to reach the entire community through multiple avenues, but always bringing the lens of sustainability and environmental awareness into it. And so even when I sit in and participate on a Parks and Rec Commission meeting, I sometimes can't keep track of all of the balls, right? So the idea around making sure that when they have some kind of a community outreach where there's materials involved, emphasizing resource conservation on those materials and alternative approaches would be an excellent thing to bring to that conversation. So maybe trying to find a way to elevate that as far as a work goal for us, to try to always remember to think and speak in those kind of environmental terms and sustainability terms when we are interacting with different agencies agencies, even if what we're there to do is focused on one area of work, there's always all the other areas of work where there's some way to imbue sustainable elements. The idea to expand our engagement with other organizations and other commissions is also something I would like to see us do. So the Arts and History Commission would be an area. It was interesting to me. They're actually meeting right now, I think, as well. And they were going to be receiving a presentation on the Tree City USDA status. And I thought, okay, there's a very perfect connection there. The Arts and History Commission is receiving this presentation. They may have some interest in our status as a tree city. That's obviously relevant to us, the Parks and Rec Commission. And then, of course, as an arts commission, that's an avenue potentially for bringing arts and other arts organizations into the parks and the work that we are doing. And I'd love to see that. So maybe revisiting at one point in time, I think that we can discuss like which organizations and examples of other commissions that we wish to work with, and some of those relationships have really been fostered and developed, and some new opportunities probably exist. So maybe bringing that back up and trying to assign responsibility among different subcommittees or different commission members, and committing ourselves to having those regular check-ins and staying in contact with those organizations, bringing reports back to share, and just keeping that flowing in our work plan going forward. That's all I have.
Thank you, Laura. Michelle?
Big comments, good ideas. So I don't disagree with anyone so far. I did, when I was preparing for this meeting and reviewing the work plan from last year, I was looking at the goals and the activities that were listed further on. And so I did develop a draft goal that I'd like to propose. And, that's how good, I think, put it up. And this ties into energy. Because I feel like energy is one area that this commission hasn't focused on that much recently. And I think it also ties into that last point of green economic recovery. So I don't know if you want me to do this or commit it yourself. I'll give you all a minute then.
Okay.
So I would like to see more emphasis placed on improving active transportation within the city. I walk a lot. I don't personally bike a lot, but people do, and it's not the safest community. You know, a lot of streets, it's not comfortable to go bike riding. So I think we can do better at promoting and encouraging active transportation. So that's where these are coming from. And you know, I also want us to consider and support city events that are supporting the economy, but are also located in areas where residents can get to them by walking or bike riding safely. So I think we should be more focused on, you know, where people are, not in the outskirts. So this is what I put together as some items for us to consider. I'd like to see a goal like this incorporated into our work plan in the coming year.
Any thoughts or questions from the commissioners first?
Yeah, I guess when I noticed one of the point, I should have turned a bike, so I'm definitely in favor of safer bike things. I know the section of my commute that Ballsy side is my most trafficked section. I also remember that we had, like Lime bikes or something. There was some scooters. There was one of those bike share or scooter share things recently on the peninsula. And then everything went away and everyone was grumpy about them. So I don't know if there was anything officially said about that that may affect our ability to have dockless bikes in the future. It may be good to look at what we learned from that before making that a goal here. I do definitely like the encouragement of taking action on places that are near high quality transportation between bus and rec trails. That does, it actually makes a good amount of sense for decision making about where you're going to go, where you're going to send people. I know, for example, the work that we've done at the field here. I'm forgetting the name of it now. The one of the big field by the Boys and Girls Club is very near bus and walkability and residential areas and not that far off Fremont Street. And then there's a separate ball field that's over more like in the Seaside Highland area, which I don't even think is a bus stop near it. And so thinking about encouraging use of activities happen here versus there when one is reachable and one might not be reachable. That's something I had never thought of before. I think that's really clever.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess I just have a question because you have their support or oppose related state legislation. So does that mean that as a commission we can do that? I guess that's my question. Support or oppose state legislation?
The city can take positions, and as a commission, yeah, the city can, and I think as the commission, we can make recommendations to city council on what position you'd like to see.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And in that sense, I'm wondering how we can implement it to our other goals, and not necessarily just active transportation. So the other thing I was going to mention is there is a lot of funding coming from the federal level when it comes to switching to clean transportation means like school buses and buses and all of that. I'm wondering if there's a way that we can also advocate for the city to get some of that funding. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
It's a ready goal and well thought through with a robust number of activities. I can think of potentially more, but probably more than necessary for 1 year's worth of homework plan. So I think it's great. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks so much for putting it together. I agree. I think it's wonderful. We found, I think, working on this commission that the areas that we are most successful in are the areas where people or commissioners have a wealth of knowledge and a deep passion for a topic. And I know that this is a topic that those statements are true for you. I had one thought that came to mind, and another one, but I can't remember the second one. The first one was parking. And so, that's sort of like complementary, not anti-complementary, I guess, not complementary, but still an issue that would be, an aspect to consider, but it also can be a little bit political. So I didn't know if that was something that you thought about, but purposely not included or.
So the fourth bullet talks about parking and looking into a pilot program for the Broadway area.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go like maybe to downtown Monterey, I'm guilty of doing this. Sometimes you want to circle around a few times until you can find the parking spot right in front of the location you want to go to. And that, causes you to drive more than you need to, generates greenhouse gas emissions. So when you have pricing set to discourage that, people will park where it's cheaper. They'll just go there, they'll park and then take care of their business. So this would encourage people to either find a different way to get to the location where they want to go, or go at a time where the pricing is better.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just suggesting to test this out in the Broadway area, because that is the commercial area, and it's also planned for, development, more residential development.
So sorry, I have a question. Do we have paid parking in Seaside? Where do we have paid parking?
I don't think we do now.
Oh, okay, that's the plan. Okay, I understand better now. Sorry.
The other thought I had was, that one thing, a real advantage to this is that we have a transportation commission or committee already. And so it's, you know, as Laura was saying during her comments, it's really nice to work with other commissions that already exist. So I would see this being an area where we could get some traction maybe in working collaboratively with them.
Just to touch on one. I know that the city does have somebody contracted who's doing a permit study. We look at downtown Broadway and also over at certain things in West Broadway or more specific plan become a reality. That plan would specify a parking structure. But again, that's dependent on money raised by development. That's just what we're not seeing yet, so. I like the idea, I've seen it in larger cities, but I think that would be one of those items to not move forward just based on the trajectory that the city has taken in terms of seeing parking as being something that we provide to support versus charging. Discouraging. So at this point, I would definitely let the EC kind of consider that and then see what the results of the parking study are, and then maybe modify that a bit to benefit the findings.
Do you know where they are in the study?
I don't, I would have to do an update.
I know parking is political, and people think there isn't enough parking, but there's plenty of parking. I'll end my comments there.
Okay, thanks. Great ideas, everyone. I agree with everything that's been stated. I think the only one that I would add is just around number 1, and that is continuing support of the PIP 4 policy, and sort of combining that maybe with SB 1383 supports and litter, which is of course part of the PIP 4, but you know, tying it into beautification and community pride, I think would be beneficial as well. So I definitely would advocate for leaving 1 in, you know, revising it to reflect progress that's been made, and where we're going from here, because I definitely don't want to just approve it and then sort of hope that it all turns out for the best. You know, I think we still are going to need to provide a lot of support for our businesses as they transition and for community members as well. The other thing that I made a note of was, I think there were some pieces that were kind of admin related. I'm just using that category in my head, and I'm thinking about, you know, do we continue on Zoom, or do we meet in person, or is it every other? How do we want to approach that as a commission? Or what are the city guidelines going to be moving forward? Grants I kind of put under admin a bit as well, because they're very administrative heavy. And then attending meetings of other committees and commissions, I think is a really important piece to help create cohesiveness around other priorities that the city is working on. And also, we did this pre-COVID, but I would really advocate to the council to bring back kind of an all-commission meeting where the chairs or vice chairs from the different commissions or committees met and shared their work plans and talked a little bit about what they were all going to be focusing on. So that was, I think, really helpful. So if there's no other comments on this, what I'd like to propose is that I'll sort of I've been taking notes and I'll condense it down and make a draft, send it to Beth to then share around. And we can review and bring it back at the next meeting. If we were able to get through it and adopt it at the next meeting, great. If not, then we'll just continue to work on it until we reach that point. If there's anything else that you think of as your like head hits the pillow tonight, or you're eating your dinner, don't hesitate to reach out. I will just add that when we get to the point of approving it and discussing what we're actually going to be focusing on, keep in mind that to do good, you actually have to do something, right? So to achieve these things, it's really great to come up with ideas, but to be willing to invest the person power and the time to make it happen is really, the crux of the commission being successful. So if you propose it, be ready to stand up and help support it, I guess is my advice, right? So any public comment on this item before we? Okay.
Okay. Okay. Just regarding the vehicle, I'm interested in learning if you can add the language of sidewalks or adding sidewalks as part of the infrastructure plan. Especially in the residential neighborhood where I live, getting across the street is, I'm sure it's a very difficult task to even inventory that, the whole sidewalk, inventory the city and if we have something to start with, maybe a pilot project and certainly the bolster community involvement. So yes, just that was my own comment. I'd love to see that.
Great, thank you. Put that down as well.
Very, very worthy addition. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to reports from commissioners. Yes, great.
I had offered last session to look at potential signage, which we investigated in early 2020 and then set aside, hopefully to resolve it before the April Earth Day activities. I did a little bit of research. The basic thing is that in terms of signage, if you're going to have anything that's as reusable and low impact on the environment as possible, the best thing is cloth, either cloth tablecloths or a cloth banner of some sort. Most of the rest of the products seem to be vinyl, and that is much less environmentally friendly than most of the cloth options. The two best options out there in terms of usability in a lot of circumstances would be either like some sort of a table banner, like a tablecloth that has signage hanging off the front, or what are called like feather flags, the post that you stick in the ground with the tall thing sticking up, which would help people to find us at a location. Those also have the advantage of usually there's like a stake that you can just drive into the ground in the park if you go somewhere, for example, for a cleanup day, or you can put it into a stand where it stands on surfaces if you're like indoors or something. Table banners are available from a variety of local vendors, including Monarch Signs, which is on Broadway Avenue. And if we had an idea about our goal with that, we can get a quote from them easily to approve at the next meeting. Feather flags are not available locally, as near as I can tell. I called around a couple places. Are readily available online though, including from California and Bay Area vendors. So depending on what the goal is, the general quotes I was getting at were starting at about $100. So this is not a huge investment and should be able to last through many years of eventing. Personally, I'd like to suggest the idea of a feather flag because I like the idea of having other work sites at parks or other work days. So people can be like, why is that official looking sign over there? But that's also not something available locally. So I just wanted to report that's what I had so far. If anyone had any suggestions about next steps. Yeah.
So the feather is the one that stands up.
Yeah, if you picture like the straight line is like there's the bow at the top and then a cloth comes down off of it. They're used in a variety of advertising and other things like that. It's very good for place marking, and you can get it, higher than people's heads so that if you're at an event, they can see you. The challenge I've found in the past with tablecloths is that when you're tabling, the people you talk to stand in front of your sign, and that doesn't help. So while a tablecloth is really, really easy to work with and deploy, it might be worth it depending on our goal.
I like the idea of stand-up one. And Blue Zones uses that when they're out of the parking days, and it's easy to find them. So I like that one. And then, I don't know if you're done with the report, but you were gonna talk about the coordination with Earth Day.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, yes. I don't know if we want to stop that one and go to the next one, but yes, that's next on the list. Are we ready to move on to that? Or?
The only question I would have is if there is a specific motion that you need or approval that you need from us. So I think, normally we've had worked with like what a budget, what the cost might be, samples of things like that. So
Yeah.
if we want it before Earth Day, we might be running out of time.
It's not on the agenda though, I don't know if we can.
Yeah, we can't, well, we don't even have the information.
So the good news is that you can put in the order of things and get quotes for things and then get a motion to pay them. After that, it's so much of a chicken and egg thing. I was trying to ask everyone like how much does it cost, and they're like, well, give me a quote. And okay, here's price me this thing. I'll give me your design. So no one wanted to price anything until they had it ready to ship, basically. So that is tough. I don't really know the best order of operations. I'm sorry. We could put on the agenda for next meeting. Most of these are things that can be made like that day. One of the Southern California places was like, same day shipping, 3-day delivery.
Could potentially spend it if we did it within the time frame of credit card needs to be paid, but the budget coming up, I know that likely $300, possibly back up to $500. But that won't give us the time for it. I know that the recent renewal of the city designation.
Oops.
Which is totally fine. 2 minutes.
Kristen, I think I would ask that we agendize for next meeting, and if you could bring at that time a full proposal, what you would provide for what the sign design would be, and suggest that to us. And if we want to make amendments or comments or changes, then hopefully we can resolve that all and approve with changes so that essentially, if we can find funding or, an anonymous donation from the community can support what the cost is, if you can have that quote, a full design package ready to go that we can discuss to approve at the next meeting, that would be very helpful.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I didn't quite feel right just deciding all those things on my own, but perhaps I can communicate faster. Example for Seaside City logos. Okay. Does that work for other folks?
Yeah, I think the cost, the style, and what the design would be, right? That's great. Do you want to talk about Earth Day?
Absolutely. Hey, next one. Okay, so I was able to attend the Zoom meeting with Sustainable Seaside looking at our Earth Day celebration. At that time, they'd already had approval from the city of Seaside to sponsor it, which meant that it was able to be happening on the city lawn. We had talked about, we had talked about possibly having a cleanup event as part of the on-site Earth Day experience. And ultimately that was tabled in favor of having a morning work day as usual. that would be just co-branded in the Earth Day materials. So it would be more like, starting morning, doing the cleanup here, this is our location, and then parties over here. That was where that sold out. Folks had gone back to their areas to look for donations. They were going to be doing fundraising raffle. They were asking some people about emceeing some local performances and people who wanted to table, mostly talking about sustainable things. The main focus of this year, in terms of, first you're gonna have community tables and donations that people can raffle, but the main focus seems to be on electric vehicles and electric bikes, which dovetail really nicely with kind of wanting to have an activity for like families or kids. So they were talking about having like a little like bike obstacle course, and by obstacle course, not actually obstacles because that would be dangerous, so like hurt, but like a bike route to bike around. There's folks were sent back with a little bit of homework about where to put that, because for some reason we thought the library and DMV were closed on the day of the Earth Day celebration, and we thought they were actually probably open that day, and so you take it the parking lot with a bike course may not actually be useful. So that the location of where people could bike was pending, but they wanted to have electric vehicles and electric bicycles for people to test on site. One of the recommendations I made was to talk to local bike shops who probably already have the insurance and stuff in mind to allow people to use their bikes before they buy them. And then people would be able to know where to buy a bicycle if they decide they want an e-bike. And the community already had, the organizations they were working with already had the stuff for car test drives or cars that they could just look at in case of people bringing their personal vehicles. So that was kind of a big push for this year's Earth Day celebration, getting some of that electrified transportation on the table. Laura, am I forgetting anything?
There was a second meeting that I think you were not in attendance, so there was some updates.
Great.
So I can take it from there and
Do it.
take over report, start buying. Basically just yes, EV cars available on the electric bikes. It seems that the partner Ecology Action that was going to be facilitating that was working with another community partner, and as of the last planning meeting, that community partner was not going to be able to attend and facilitate electric bike demos. So that's off the table. As of now, there is another planning meeting coming up on the 18th, Friday, March 18th. There will be at 3 p.m. an Earth Day planning meeting hosted by Sustainable Seaside. So you can contact Catherine Crockett, who came to present from Sustainable Seaside, if you are interested in attending that Earth Day planning meeting for further updates. Several things have been confirmed: who was going to MC, Polling Arts will be presenting and performing at the event. One thing I wanted to bring up, yes, we are going to, as a community, all of the engaged partners, well, besides Ecology Action, are participating in the park pollinator habitat maintenance days, and that will be at Highland Otis Park that day, April 30th. And so everyone agreed that branding would focus on emphasizing a day of service at Highland Oaks Park during our regularly scheduled 10 a.m. to 12 activities there. And then there is also discussion right now pending about having a ribbon cutting ceremony at Highland Oaks Park in honor of the new developments that have happened there. A lot of infrastructure has gone in recently, and that should be complete and ready to promote and present to the public. So a lot of coordinated effort and possibilities for photo ops and touch points on that day specifically. So the plan is begin 10 a.m. at Highland Oaks Park with our volunteer day, have a ribbon cutting ceremony, promote the Earth Day event to everyone in attendance. At 1 p.m. the Earth Day event starts. And so as far as the Environmental Commission's participation in the Earth Day event, of course, I will be there for the park work day. I will be facilitating that activity, and then I plan to attend the Earth Day event. But I don't anticipate having the bandwidth to have a table and present. I'm sure I'm willing to stand at the table and talk to people about the Environmental Commission once I get there, but I would really appreciate if anyone else in the commission can commit to setting up a table, having an activity, coming up with whatever we might want to bring to the event to share with the public. And I think that's all as far as first day planning.
Do you know, the Air Resources district is gonna be there? Because they have electric bike grants and electric vehicle grants.
Correct, we do. And I'm certain that Ecology Action is planning to provide information about all of the resources that are currently available through Air Resources Board, through Community CE. I believe that there is planning to present that information. I'm not certain that those partners are going to actually use it.
Okay.
I wish it was going to play.
Okay, it'd be nice if there was like actual applications, you know, or something like. Do it, because I think there's been not as much of a response to the electric bike applications, but it's a pretty hefty, I think it's $1,000 or $1,500, which would pay for a significant portion of an e-bike. So.
Okay. Do you know the applications that are complicated and it's a reimbursement based?
They changed it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They tried to make it more, they tried to make it easier. So I haven't gone through the process, so I can't speak to it directly, but I know that was feedback that was received, and then they adjusted it accordingly.
I'll make a note during the planning meeting to ask about whether or not they will have one of the partners there to facilitate promoting the electric bike incentives.
And then I have the same questions, the commissioners, you know, so who's planning on being there? Can anybody see more?
I can plan on being there. We might have to think about what we're doing, depending on what that investment looks like.
Would you be willing to suggest a plan for the next meeting or what we're tabling on?
It sounds like I need to check back in with Beth Crockett about attending that next meeting, so I can have a good idea about what kind of things I might be able to prevent.
Yeah.
But it'd also be good to know how many of us would want to do something before I volunteer something that, like, maybe I could do solo, or that, you know, who we have to trade off on it.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like Laura's time and energy would be well used with all those sporting events. So we can try and think of what could be done. But yeah, I'll see if I can come up with a plan.
I'm able to speak to the Fit Four. Yeah. But I don't know. I'll be at the morning events. I'll try to be there as much as I can in the afternoon, but you know, I'd love to distribute the responsibility.
Yeah, I can plan on being there as well. I have a question.
Yeah.
What's outreach looking like, you know? What is outreach? Or did they talk about that at all?
They indicated that they were beginning to do outreach already, as far as printing out like flyers and quarter pagers that could be distributed, and as far as where they've distributed and in what way they're putting it out, that I don't know exactly. But I know that they had already started as of last Friday to get outreach materials available. They probably could use support with extra outreach and distribution.
This is sustainable society.
Correct.
What are the hours of the afternoon event are going to be? Because it starts at 1.
It's from 1 to 4.
I could be available for that.
I just had a dumb idea inspired by our audience comments, but perhaps if we had a very, very large map of Seaside, our people who came could color in whether or not there was a sidewalk on the street they're familiar with. And there we could have a very good public survey of the opinion of the sidewalks.
We've done something in the past. I think I did it here. And I'm maybe confusing this with campus tabling, but we spread like butcher paper across the table before and got a bunch of markers and had people like write what they love most about Seaside and, sort of inspiring positive comments and, they're not all about the environment. Some are, or what's your favorite place? Or do you have a favorite tree? Things like that that have been kind of nice and positive. Then we did some bee stuff at the last one as well. But I like advertising and talking about the core and maybe some of the other aspects of our work plan. If our work plan is approved by the, they're just the first thoughts that come to mind, but it looks like that has something to say.
Sidewalks, that was discussed recently, I believe, by Neighborhood Improvement Commission. I think they voted on Airbnbs, short-term rentals, to give a certain amount of that money towards sidewalks. I'm not sure if they voted and approved that. But I can try to find it and send you like the timestamp to be aware of what's happening. It's a lot of the money and makes recommendations to council on how that is spent. And then regarding the Earth Day event, compost requirements in the city, there's 3 city locations where the compost bins are available for pickup from the public, but we have a ton. So that was just something that we could bring, to well.
I would fit in well with the portables. You have a sorting activity with clean pieces of trash, like what go and what kind of bin, although what goes where. Maybe green waste will be there and they can do that.
Yeah, I do know that the compost
Okay.
bins were mentioned, didn't register if someone was specifically going to take responsibility for having them. So again, another commissioner participating in the next planning event would be really great. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think it would be great if we had an activity and something engaging and any way to also solicit community feedback, as Lucy was suggesting. That is always nice to review and see what people will share. So moving on with my report, slightly related, one possible activity is origami monarchs. I sent a request to the council and mayor to take what is called the Mayor's Monarch Pledge to support conservation of habitat for the monarch butterfly, which we are effectively already doing with our pollinator program. This is really just to bring awareness to the community about the Western monarch. I've noticed some misinformation around the community kind of grassroots level about the Western monarch migration, and it's something that I thought I would like to address through our efforts with the pollinator gardens, and really make sure people understand and appreciate, the beauty and significance of this butterfly to our region. So that will be taken up, I believe, at the next council meeting. It's supposed to be on the agenda. So hopefully we will have the Mayor's Monarch Pledge to also celebrate along with our Bee City USA status. Otherwise, park work days continue. This Saturday we will be at Durant Park. We will have some special guests. The UC University of California has a program called Partner Stewards, and that's being facilitated through the PG Natural History Museum, and they will be coming to see what we're doing and learn from our community. Their theme is partnering for resilience. So looking at our efforts as partners to make our community more resilient through the Pollinator Project. I already mentioned we will be at Highland Oaks Park on the day of the Earth Day event, which is April 30th. Blue Zones Project. We will have our third Saturday the following weekend at Castle Park with Blue Zones Project. Again, they're partnering with FOSTA for every third Saturday to join the park work day. Blue Zones Project also is exploring and engaging with many other projects and potential areas of interest that have come up in this commission a number of times. So one of those will be pathways. They will be exploring the possibility of a marquee project, we call it, with the city that would focus on improving pathways that connect Havana Solis and Cunningham and Metz Park, and potentially expanding that all the way through to Martin Luther King Junior School. And I don't know how they look at, but basically, just to say, that's the area they're looking at. They will be having a gathering of partners and input session to explore whether or not that would be, in fact, a marquee project for the city to pursue. So for those of you interested in that type of infrastructure, it would be good partners to be connected with. They would probably tie into sidewalks and other transportation infrastructure improvements. Also conversations around community gardening, urban farming, food resilience, farmers markets, some other area of interest that they've been exploring, and I've been involved in various peripheral conversations with Luzon's project around those topics. And so if those are areas of interest for the partnership among other commission members, it's a partner to reach out to. I don't know where to stop sometimes. I think that's probably good. That's all my report.
Thank you. You're doing so much. Michelle or Mariana, do you have anything you'd like to report on? Good.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I haven't been as busy as usual. I did a park cleanup a couple weeks ago. I can't remember the name of the park now, but it was the Blue Zones Coordination. There were a lot of volunteers out there, a lot of youth, which was really exciting to see too. So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have any other updates.
Thank you. Beth, do you want to talk about the PIP 4? I only have a couple small things, but you probably have more details. Okay. The only things that I have to report is that it is now March and the policy is officially acted. It's went into effect March 1st. And so that's very exciting. And Environmental Innovations and Rethink Disposable, who are working together to support the transition for businesses, have begun training and have begun the door-to-door work. So I did hear a small update after their first door-to-door that they approached 2 businesses, and I haven't been able to tag along yet, but I hope to next week when they go out again. They have got pretty good response, and because there's so much that's included in the PIP 4, you know, there's a lot of different sort of pieces of that policy. They're focusing first on businesses that have in restaurant dining. So it might be table service or it might be counter service, but they have disposable single-use materials that they're using to serve. And so they're focusing on those that have water credits and that can switch to disposable, or I'm sorry, to reusable. And I think there was feedback, at least from one of the first 2 that that they met with, that they were definitely on board. And there's just, you know, to remind everybody, there's $300 that are being made available to businesses to help support that transition from single-use to reusable, and $600 for businesses that are owned by people of color. And so they also have additional resources to make that transition from single-use to multi-use. And one of the businesses was really excited about that. So eager to take advantage of that aspect of the policy.
Dishes.
Exactly, that's what it'd be used for.
Right. Yeah, so you know, instead
Yeah.
of having to spend a little money all the time buying disposable.
Yep, that's the idea. And then, you know, it's not kind of a one and done. The approach is, you know, really working with businesses to address there's financial constraints that might be present, but there also might be logistical constraints, like how much space do they have to store these dishes? And, do they have the staffing to wash them and things like that? So, during the meeting, they're like, it's not uncommon for us to go in and like help them install some shelves. So it's really, I think, a very hands-on, personalized approach. I think that's really important, and I'll just put this teaser out there that the $30,000 that we have right now, I really hope it's extended so they can continue this work and to continue to provide this transitional support to businesses over the coming years, because that money's going to run out really fast, and I don't want it to just fizzle away after that. So just throwing that out there. What else do you have for us, Beth?
I jumped on the meeting last week with the local stakeholders. So many of them are agency partners. They provided an update on the retail arm of outreach. So we provided them with a list of all the businesses in the city. There's going to be retail outreach, and then there's going to be the restaurant outreach. The retail outreach is going to be managed by 2 of those individuals who have about 20 CSUMB service learners signed up. And the hope is that they send them out in pairs, or potentially send them out with more experienced individuals the first time around. That way they get kind of the swing of things. They're going out with a packet of materials. So this is where we're talking about the balloons, the litter pickup on the property, and then the restaurant outreach part, Grace, I think her name is from Rethink Disposable, is training 2 people from environmental innovation, both of whom are Spanish speakers. So they're going to be out in the field specifically with the restaurants side and what that was. We'll be providing an update to council on this work on 317. Lacey did an excellent job of doing that. I think there was just some confusion about who was going to be doing the outreach. Definitely not members of the environmental commission, but professionals and then student volunteers who are being trained on how to do it right.
Yeah, the update that I got in those 2 businesses was from the 2 people that were trained. So Grace trained Jackie and Corona, and they were the 2 that went out. So yeah.
Can I ask what the acronym stands for?
Oh yes, the Priority Impact Plastic Pollution Prevention Policy. PIC 4. Beth, any other reports? Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 12th, 5:30. There'll likely be some information coming out before then, so stay tuned to your email. Until then, have a great evening, and this meeting is adjourned.